bandwagons. Should I get on board the Pelicans bandwagon, or should I get on board LSU's bandwagon, or both? What should I do?
Well, I think Clyde, the snide, would tell you to get on both.
I would. That's actually
Clyde's a
the correct
bandwagon
answer.
guy.
Actually, that's incorrect.
He's
I'm
driving the
realistic.
bandwagon. He's
Larry-
the guy up there in the front seat.
Larry is like your typical really new millennial.
I want to get involved. I want to get excited about something.
His attention span is about as long as the shortest dynamite switch.
What would that mean?
It means
like
that
an M80.
Yeah,
Like
literally
the
whatever it
span
is.
of how an M80 pops. That's how long my attention.
That's
span
how
is.
long your attention span and/or bandwagon status lies. It's never like, hey, let me be in this for the long haul.
My attention
It's,
span
hey,
is fine, but I need to be.
stimulated.
I need to have a reason to be good with the Pelicans and good with LSU basketball.
You could never
I need
watch
a
soccer.
reason.
You could never watch soccer because soccer is so long, and then there's no. Obviously, you have promotion, relegation. Oh man, if you were a fan of a soccer team that
How
was
did
always
soccer
threatening
come up?
relegation,
How
you
did
would
soccer
jump
come
to
up?
the top 4 teams in the Premier League, like Arsenal and Chelsea.
That's why
and
I
Man
typically
City.
watch. I wouldn't watch any of that crap.
That's why you're a Federer fan, ain't you?
Well, of course, I'm a Roger Federer fan. What do you mean?
Because he's the GOAT.
Well, yeah, he's incredible.
Yeah,
I'm
he's
a
always
Pete
been the GOAT.
Sampras guy. I was a Stefan Edberg guy. There's certain classic style.
Edberg,
with
I'm not
him.
surprised. Yeah, that makes sense.
I was a big Patrick Rafter fan. Serve and volley, I'm a big fan of.
I like that. Is that the style you try to mimic yourself? Or?
When I was younger, yeah, because all I had was. I digress. Why are we talking about
I
that?
don't know. Clyde derailed
Clyde-
it 2 minutes into the show.
You're welcome. Good morning, everyone.
Took me to a bad place, but I want to get on board with the Pelicans. I want to get on board with LSU. They're pushing me to get on board. LSU with a good win last night. Yes, they should have beat Vandy at Vandy a few weeks ago. That would increase their resume to get into the NCAA tournament, but they took care of business against a team they needed to take care of business with last night, and they beat Vandy by 10. And it's something that it's funny. Will Wade's comments before the game, say yesterday, and we played it on the show. Hell no, I'm not talking about tournament. Then after the game last night, well, maybe I talked a little bit about the tournament, what we need to do to possibly get in. And look, they're responding, and I think it's something that if we're starving for something to get on board with in college basketball, LSU is starting to emerge as that team that it's going to be interesting the next couple of weeks when they play some teams that they should beat or at least be in the conversation of beating, and then you get to the SEC tournament.
Yeah, I think they're still on the outside looking in.
Right.
Easily.
They got to win their way in.
They're
Right.
going to have to win these other games. They can't afford to drop these games on the road coming up, and they got to take care of it. They got to win some games in the tournament, but at least they're in the conversation,
Right.
Which is more than we've said in the last few years, and they should be at some point. LSU basketball has to get back into business of being in the NCAA tournament every year. I went on my rant last week, and Clyde defended everything, as usual. But LSU basketball should be an NCAA tournament participant every year. My point, you brought it up yesterday after the show. There are 3 Louisiana products right now being projected as either first or second round NBA draft picks. 3. This state produces lots of talent, and that doesn't even include the national draw that LSU has with Will Wade right now, the way they're going. There's no excuse why they shouldn't be there every year. The thing that I don't understand is why nobody seems to care. That's the thing I don't understand.
I think it's a lot like what Larry's talking about. I think, unfortunately for Johnny Jones, I think for as much as he tried to work to really bring back a lot of the nostalgia for what LSU basketball was when he was assistant under Dale Brown and such, he wasn't able to do it. And I think that the lull for college basketball in Baton Rouge right now is it's starting to pick up. And I mean, obviously, Andrew, like we talked about yesterday when he was in studio with us, there were times last year when it was like me and him, and we'd be the only really handful of media at these games, and we're just wondering what eventually when is it going to turn? When is it going to flip?
Baton Rouge media was heavily staffing midweek baseball games as opposed to
LSU like
basketball.
LSU SEC basketball games that were on television. So I think what Will Wade's been able to do in the short time he's been here is he's laid a foundation. He's instilled a much stronger work ethic, and clearly it's starting to pay off with the fact that this team, we weren't even talking about them 2 weeks ago, outside of the fact that they were either losing games and winning games or whatnot, and we weren't even thinking about this team possibly being an NCAA tournament-bound team, and clearly they are.
They've got motivation now, and I think it's similar to kind of what happens in the NFL sometimes at the end of the year, where the teams that are in it, they're motivated and they're making a playoff push. You can kind of feel it with LSU. They have a carrot at the end of the stick, whether it's the NCAA or not. They're at least driving forward, and there's a positive momentum because they haven't been there in a while. So it's a motivating factor for Will Wade and his staff, and you can see it when the team plays. They play with a great energy and enthusiasm, and I think they're going to make a run at it for sure. It's just a matter of what happens around them. Do enough upsets happen in these NCAA tournaments, because they're definitely going to be an at-large team unless they win the SEC tournament, and they're going to have to hope that a lot of upsets don't happen in these smaller conferences.
Yeah, Tremont Waters with a big game last night, which when LSU's on fire, he's having big games. He had a game-high 28 points and 9 assists, so obviously distributing the basketball as well. Duop Reith with 16, Aaron Epps 15, Skylar Mays with 14. I mean, when you're getting that kind of production, you're going to anticipate some winning basketball. And I know we dove into it a lot yesterday with Andrew Lopez, of course, our LSU beat writer for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. And the schedule, like, this is a favorable schedule going forward. You're not having to play any of the teams that are really the cream of the crop. You're not playing Auburn. You're not playing Tennessee. I guess best team, Clyde, would you agree, would be Mississippi State?
Absolutely.
And they're flawed?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's strange to talk about Ben Howland's team because he's also in the same boat as a lot of these other SEC coaches, where he was a big-name coach that was brought in along the same time that a lot of these other coaches, Rick Barnes is brought in, and Avery Johnson, and he's struggling to find his footing, but he's going to take a little bit more time. But yes, I would absolutely say that this Mississippi State team is almost a mirror image of LSU, where they have flashes of brilliance, but at the same time, they absolutely can sometimes crumble in the wrong times.
Right, and maybe we've gotten over that with LSU. Maybe they've kind of eliminated that from their I guess, I don't know, their characteristics, because you were seeing that earlier on, and now they've won 3 of 4. You've won all 3 of those games were at home that you won, and actually they've won at least the last 4 games. They certainly play well in the PMAC. They don't play well on the road, and I think that's the biggest thing, because you got 2 road games coming up, starting this Saturday at Georgia, and just look at their schedule. They've won, let's see, outside of they had a 2-loss span at home against Alabama, Georgia. They lost at Vandy, and that's where we all started just kind of, LSU basketball, they'll be good next year. But then they win at home against Texas A&M. They lose to Auburn at Auburn. They lose to Tennessee at Tennessee. You expect that. But then they win at home against Arkansas, lose on the road at Florida. Win at home against Ole Miss, lose at Alabama. Win at home against Missouri and Vandy. And, Jeff, you were talking about it. They got to win on the road or they're going to be toast.
Yeah, they've lost 5 in a row on the road. It's hard to win on the road in the SEC this year, especially because everybody is so even. Kentucky got a big win at Arkansas last night. They're kind of surging now. They found their footing. But every game seems like it's evenly matched. There's not too many blowouts in this league. So, yeah, this is going to be their chance. Georgia's a team that certainly can beat them, but I think LSU's got the right momentum right now. Will Wade's team kind of smells it. So we'll see if they can push forward.
Absolutely. So just want to line up the rest of the show. Around 10:30, it wouldn't be a Wednesday without talking to Will Guillory, Pelicans beat writer for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. And we're breaking down the barrier. Mike Triplett of ESPN covers the Saints for ESPN. Of course, longtime Saints beat writer and Saints columnist for us here at NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. He's coming on the show, making his debut after months of whining. Now we're going to have him on the show. Breaking news. Breaking down the barrel.
I'm sure he wasn't whining, but I'm sure he was very inquisitively asking, so when are you going to get me on the show, guys?
He whined yesterday about it.
Wow.
And so I gave him a hug.
Bored.
I gave him a hug and said, "You're coming on, dude. Let's do it."
Yeah, I'm glad we're getting him on. Tripp's an old colleague of ours, does a great job at ESPN covering the Saints, and we'll get into some nitty-gritty Saints talk. By the way, along the NFL lines, we were discussing Jarvis Landry. I guess he's off the market now, unless you want to potentially trade for him.
Absolutely. We were talking about the franchise tag yesterday, and we were debating whether Miami would be interested in doing it. They did put the franchise tag on Jarvis Landry. So unless they want to trade him or they're in the works of getting a long-term deal done, I would assume that would be the route you typically want to take, because I don't know the Dolphins salary cap situation. They probably don't want to have $16 million cap hit them for 1 year. So
it's a lot of money for Jarvis Landry.
That is a lot of money.
A lot of money for a possession receiver averaging 8 yards a catch. I don't know.
I think he's more than a possession receiver. The numbers are skewed last year because they were so bad. His numbers were better with Tannehill.
I think he's a number 2 receiver, in my opinion. I mean, I don't think he's a number 1 receiver in this league. I never have. I feel like Odell Beckham Jr. is a number 1 kind of guy. But he's a good player. He's definitely a good, versatile football player. I mean, are they going to be in the market? Are the Dolphins going to be in the market for a quarterback? There's a lot of speculation there. But I was looking last night, Larry, Clyde, at the cap room around the league. I mean, there's some teams with crazy cap room. The 49ers, over like $100 million. So some of these teams are going to spend. Yeah, they're going to spend it. I think that, especially like the 49ers now, they got the quarterback taken care of. The fact that they could pay him that contract and still have over $100 million, they're going to be a player for, say, a Malcolm Butler. They'll be a heavy player because they need help in the secondary.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think I'm not totally sure, but I think the 49ers are going to try to front load Garoppolo's contract on purpose because they've got the cap room to do it. Basically, give him a bunch. Like, what was it? Remember when Drew Brees got $40 million cash?
Yes, that's how you do it.
Yes.
You do it now while you have the opportunity to get it off your books.
Now, they might make his cap number huge this year. I'm not totally sure. Honestly, I need to look it up.
Pay him a huge base salary, or you could
just to get it off the books while you can.
Roster bonus. I mean, the player doesn't care as long as he gets the money.
Right. The player will get the money no matter what it is.
They actually prefer to get it up front. Nobody wants to wait on money. When you got money in hand, it's more valuable than prorated.
That's why do you think loan sharks come up with Bruno and want their money? Maybe someone could do that for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, those like payday loans out there where you hear about, and they're like 400% interest rate.
Montel Williams is on, just get your loan here. And it's fine print, 80% interest in the first 2 minutes that you have the money. That's why they're illegal in some states.
Exactly.
The predatory loans.
That's why those places are all making so much money. But anyway, back to the point at hand, Jarvis Landry looks like he's off the market, but there are reports out there that say he may be trade bait, that they just want to get the asset under contract and then maybe move him. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, certainly a situation. But he's the first one to receive a franchise tag, and the period goes on for the next couple of weeks. So usually you start seeing this toward the end of the period, deadline spur action, as we always say. But as we go to break right here on the show, there's one thing I will not have to panic about this offseason. Do you know what that is?
Long snapper.
No debate on the long snapper. Zach Wood has re-signed a 1-year deal. Praise baby Jesus. No long snapper. Bermuda Triangle with the Saints.
So
unless Zach Wood steps on a banana peel and falls down in the street, and then all hell breaks loose, and I start hyperventilating.
So you're telling us that there won't be long snapper watch during this upcoming summer's training camp leading into the season again?
Now
I really enjoyed
I think
that.
we devoted like a whole show to the long snapper last year.
We did.
Larry was in
I was extremely
category
panicked.
5 panic.
He was extremely panicked.
Yeah, he was having to breathe into a bag, and it worked out okay.
We don't know. We never even remembered Zach Wood's name, and that's a good thing.
No, he was on the team.
Exactly.
By the way, we did have our Saints Hall of Fame selection meeting yesterday, and one of the Saints that was on, I guess I can let this out of the bag, one of the Saints that was on the selection committee list of potential candidates was Kevin Hauser.
I do remember seeing
I don't
that.
think Kevin Hauser is going to make it.
I think he's not going to make it.
I don't think so.
Not so much.
I'm just shocked he's on the list.
Exactly. All right, Will Guillory in 10 minutes. Mike Triplett, top of the 11 o'clock hour. Your phone calls, 504-260-1280 is the number to get involved here on Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Dunc and Holder.
Josh Innes, morning
Poor
6 to
Tulane.
10.
They're at Wichita State tonight.
Ooh.
Oh gosh, that's gonna be
Wichita State though is up and down too. Like they're
Yeah, I've noticed.
they're kind of.
play to the level.
I mean, there was a story saying that depending on how the rest of this year goes, Greg Marshall might can Greg Marshall this year. Yeah.
Well, according to my guys that cover college, they say he's one of the biggest cheaters.
Oh yeah.
Notorious.
I had a friend who worked at Evansville when they were back in the valley, and yeah, dude, it's stupid.
How'd you enjoy your first horse race
On the roof?
experience?
I want to tell the world
Fun,
I just
wasn't
met
it?
the woman of my dreams. What
It's
do I
cool,
do?
isn't it?
I wanted to tell the world that Liberty Mutual
Yeah,
saved
the
me
thundering hooves and-
$782. Liberty did what? They
Scenery out
saved
there,
me
too.
$782. Oh, you go first. Man. $782. Really puts finding love into perspective.
Visit us online.
Yeah,
and
you
get a
got it
quote.
down.
You could save
Too bad we didn't win. We all
$782.
lost.
Liberty
We
Mutual
have
Insurance.
bet $10
Based on a
for
recent
him or
countrywide
$5
new
for
customer
him,
survey,
and you
coverage is
blew it.
underwritten by
We
Liberty
ball
Mutual
blew it.
Insurance
Good
Company.
job.
None of our horses.
iHeartRadio icons.
It's a complete shock. I was talking to Tom Amos at the track the other day, and he said that's a throwout race. It was so bizarre. You can't even.
This house is not for
He said
sale.
it's bizarre. Nothing more. He was talking to. That second place was 41. It's crazy. So. Yeah, I'm glad you had fun. I knew you would.
AutoZone is here to help you do it right. AutoZone's free services have what you need to keep your ride on the road.
I couldn't find one from you. That's why I did it.
AutoZone.
Well, and the reason was they were asking me for it, so I just had to stick something in there.
iHeartRadio.
Nobody knows your car the way you do. The way it handles and tracks with mud.
Yeah,
is
it was just
not all terrain.
basically I was under the
How it
gun.
always sounds right with a
I had to
custom
get it to
exhaust
him, so I just
and
had
wouldn't
to
ride
get it
the
up.
same without air
That's all it was.
Or how you had it painted pearl candy red, not just red. Because yeah, there's a
Yeah, it was
difference.
fun, man. Good.
We
I
know
tell you
your
what I
car
did
isn't
though. I
just a
ran
car.
into
It's
Bob
a
Fortas out
3,000-pound
there.
extension of you.
He's not doing good.
When your passion meets our
He had
inventory,
he had a
you
Bob
can do
has
anything.
have a
Thousands of
tumor
parts make
removed
your
from
car
his spine.
your car. And they're all
He's
right
got to
here
have
at eBay
radiation.
Motors.
Apparently it's benign tumor, but
American skiing legend
He's
Lindsey
real
Vonn
frail.
is ending her Olympic
He had a
career
fall.
with a
I
medal
mean, it's
of the
just
bronze
bad.
variety after the women's downhill event in her final Olympic Games.
Yeah, I
in
know. I hate-
Pyeongchang at
hate seeing that
33.
stuff.
She's now the oldest woman to claim an Olympic alpine medal. The American men's hockey team headed
we'll
home
get
from
you
Pyeongchang
back out there soon.
empty-handed.
We'll get Larry out there on a
Quarterfinal
Friday
matchup
and
with the Czech Republic,
Yes,
3-2
for sure.
Drink some
overtime
bloodies.
Shootout. The U.S. women's hockey team plays in the gold medal game tonight against Powerhouse Canada. Face off 11:10 Eastern Time.
I had some good
Canada
oysters
won
last night at
24
Pascal's
consecutive
Manali, by the
Olympic
way.
Games, 4 straight gold
Had some
medals.
good oysters at
USA
Pascal's
dropped a
Manali last
preliminary
night.
round game 2-1 to Canada. The NCAA
Oysters.
is denying Louisville's appeal of penalties leveled against the men's basketball program.
I thought you told
following
me you
a
went to
sexual
Saffron,
pay
or no?
scandal and forcing the Cardinals to vacate wins from 2011 to 2015.
Good call.
Including the
10 seconds.
championship has been vacated. The penalties were originally handed down last year that ultimately led to the firing of head coach Rick Pitino and AD Tom Jurich. That's sports. Jake Corwin,
good scene
NBC
there.
News Radio.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Wobble Wobble Wednesday in effect already here on Dunc and Holder. Programming note on Sports 1280 later on this evening. Tulane will be taking on the Wichita State Shockers, of course, nationally ranked. They're at Wichita tonight. You could catch that game right here on your flagship station for Tulane men's basketball, Sports 1280 AM. Tip-off is at 6:30. Pre-game is at 6, of course. The Todd Grappanini will be on the call up in Wichita. And Jeff, even though Tulane's kind of fallen on hard times as far as their own record, they've lost 5 in a row. They're 13-13. But we keep following the trail of Melvin Frazier. It seems as the season progresses, their junior forward, he keeps popping up in conversation for the NBA draft. And we were looking at a mock draft yesterday on ESPN, and they've slated him as a first-round pick. And that's
Isn't that amazing?
And he's a local kid. He went to Higgins.
Correct.
And so you're seeing Mike Dunleavy kind of get the best out of him. So this could be kind of one of those, I don't want to call it a barometer game, but a game where it's on a national stage against a nationally ranked opponent. Curious to see how he plays tonight.
Well, certainly NBA scouts will be there to look at Frazier. They've been coming out to Willow Street to scout him all year. And, you know, Mike Dunleavy and his staff have to get credit for what they did. They basically reworked his entire shot, the mechanics of his shot. And, look, he's still not a knockdown three-point shooter. That's not his game. He's a terrific athlete. He's a prototype modern-day NBA player.
6'5".
6'6" wing,
Right.
can slash, great athlete, can guard people. I mean, he's going to make a living in the NBA just playing defense. So I can see why people are attracted to him, and his best basketball is probably in front of him too. So as I was saying earlier, you've got Melvin Frazier from Higgins, of course Mitchell Robinson, the 7-footer from Chalmette, who's not played anywhere. He's still being
He's
projected.
kind of the mystery, but he's been projected in any of the mock NBA drafts that I've seen around 20.
Yes.
From anywhere from 20 to the late 20s. So yeah, he's got size. And he was one of the best players in the country, but we chronicled his coming and going and coming and going again earlier this year, and it's I'm curious to see how he pans out.
And then you've also got Robert Williams, who's from North Caddo, up in, I guess, that's
Shreveport
area. 6'9" freshman at A&M, who's just an incredible athlete, kind of a rebounding shot blocker type of guy. He has to increase his motor, but there's another Louisiana product. He wasn't really highly recruited. Ends up at A&M for Billy Kennedy, and he's being projected also in the first round. So, again, there's great talent that comes out of this state all the time. If somebody like Will Wade can start harnessing it, or Mike Dunleavy, they could have a national caliber program.
Well, and I don't feel like I want to bag on Tulane, even though they're 13-13, but that's still markedly better than they were last year.
Yeah, I think no one really expected them to. I mean, would they win 6 games last year or 5 games?
6, yes.
Right. So, and their conference record wasn't as good. I think people got excited early on because of their quick progress out of the gate. I mean, they beat SMU, they beat Houston. Those are good wins. Temple on the road, we were talking about that. Now they've leveled off as the conference play is, kind of toughened a little bit, but still they've made progress this year, and most of their team is back. They're probably going to lose Frazier, I would think. I know there's still some discussion out there that he might not go, but if he has a chance to go in the first round, he's gone.
You gotta go.
He's
You
gone.
gotta be kidding me.
Guaranteed contract. Kid's got to make the move. But that's only, in my opinion, only going to help Tulane's program, because kids will see that all over the state and all over the region and say, hey, if they can turn Melvin Frazier into a first-round draft pick, let me get in that mix.
And he probably would get extremely good advice from Mike Dunleavy, given his NBA ties. He would be maybe outside any of the top college coaches, but he would know if a guy is NBA ready.
Yes, and be honest with them as well. And I think he has the contacts to talk to these NBA players and GMs. And I think the Tulane program is basically run like an NBA program. If you watch them play, they run an NBA-style offense. They get up and down the court. It's a great system to play in. Shoot a lot of threes. It's going to be attractive to prospects, and they've got a lot of good young talent out there. So I think Needles pointed up for all of UNO. I mean, let's face it, your school, Nichols.
Yeah.
This kid, Roddy Peters, I've read more about his background. He's going to probably be the player of the year in the Southland, I would think. I don't even think he's starting, right? They kind of have him in a 6-man role.
Yeah, like a 6-man role coming off the bench, but he can pour it in, man.
But this is a kid that was highly recruited out of the Maryland area, point guard. I think he started out at Maryland, transferred to South Florida, and then ends up down at Nichols because of the new head coach down there, who's obviously doing a very good job.
Yeah.
And this kid could play anywhere. I mean, he's playing at Maryland in the ACC or the Big Ten. So they've bolstered their lineup with an influx of talent, as has Louisiana, Lafayette. So we actually do have some competitive programs right now in the state, and it's finally kind of starting to point in the right direction for the programs and the talent level.
You mentioned UNO. As we take a break right here on the show, we'll get to Will Guillory at the end of this break. UNO is going to be at Sam Houston State tonight. Saturday, they're at Nichols, and then they wrap up their regular season versus Southeastern. So
that's going to be a revenge game, too.
All of those three are pivotal for jockeying for Southland Conference. They're all at the top of the conference.
Yeah,
so
it's crazy.
This is going to be an exciting week over at UNO. And don't forget, UNO and LSU baseball tonight. You know LSU is going to be chomping at the bit.
Good call.
And UNO, they've beaten LSU twice. Blake Dean's going to have his club ready to go, so that ought to be a fun matchup as well. So let's take a break right here on the show. We get back. Talk Pelicans. Will Guillory. NOLA.com Times-Picayune. Wobble Wobble Wednesday would not be complete without him. So Will's coming up next here. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Duncan Holder.
So UNO's at Sam Houston tonight?
Yeah, tonight.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And then at Nichols on Saturday.
At Nichols on Saturday. I'll be there for
This
that.
is like a gauntlet.
Then they got Southeastern. I'll probably go to that game next week. Southeastern game. Because I love my boy Marlon Veal.
I'll see you there.
I think I'll go and write a column on him next week. I love that kid.
Yeah. That'll be a revenge game after they got smacked by the Lions in Hammond a week ago.
What's his name?
Yeah,
doesn't like Marlon Veal.
Through most of the day. Then
think
overnight
Slesh likes
temperatures will
Veal.
fall into the upper 60s and low 70s.
He thinks he's like a
it looks like we'll be back
volume
to record
shooter
heat
kinda
tomorrow
guy.
with temperatures near the mid 80s.
Yeah, and that's not good for his offense.
From the Fox 8 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Shelby Latino.
So he's
Have a
mellow.
great day.
I'm Tony Gold.
Volume
20 years
shooter.
ago.
The old volume shooter lad.
You can't take them unless you can't make any unless you take them.
Yeah.
If you
Anyone on planet Earth can be a volume shooter.
I know.
Yeah, you're
why,
right.
why don't all five guys say, I want to be a volume shooter? And then we'll all just gun them up. That's
As soon as you get the
mentality.
rebound, just dribble down and shoot.
After I saw Joel Embiid made 2 threes at the All-Star game, all bets are off.
What? He can shoot.
Yeah, I know he can shoot. So what? Like I was gonna say, unless you're Shaq and you're like, or like, Yao Ming and you're like 7'2", 7'3", maybe you should. But then after seeing him do it, shoot.
Yao Ming was 7'6".
7'6".
I think the problem with
That's the
Veal-
craziest guy I've ever interviewed in my life as far as, like, I mean, my
Let me put
God.
this on a stick real
It was
quick.
nuts.
All right,
Yeah,
we got Will.
cool.
Here's
Yeah,
what's
you need like a
amazing.
selfie stick.
Yeah, right.
Veal's shooting 44%. That's the problem. But kid's averaging 5.3 rebounds a game. He's like 5'9".
She's doing okay, saying
6
she's a big
assists.
girl.
Yeah.
She's the first Friends cast member to comment
I love
on
the
much
kid.
publicized split.
He's
And
like,
much
a
real-life
the
version
Southland's
of
Allen
Ross and
Iverson.
Rachel, Selena Gomez
Oh, wait,
and
here we got
Justin
more
Bieber
updates
are
on
an
people I don't know.
on-again, off-again couple, and the mega pop star
KR47 rapper.
with him to
KR47.
I don't know. There's always like
That was
some.
for Father Jeremy
Why
Bieber's
don't
wedding.
rappers just
Sources
use
say
their own
he
name? Why is this always like
Selena and a
Lil
private
Johnny?
I mean, some
Lil
dude,
Johnny,
Travis
Big
Scott.
Wayne.
Fans of last year's
mean,
hit thriller.
Why don't actors
which
use their real names?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Why wouldn't anybody use their real names? We'd solve all the social media problems if we
Yeah,
just had
Emilio
to use your name.
Estevez isn't Estevez, he's a Sheen.
Why can't
Sheen
everybody
isn't
just
even the
use their name? Why does Twitter have to be Who Dat 47? Why can't you just say I'm Mark Stevens?
S97 fever.
Yeah, I know Mark Stevens. I think he goes by Mark Stevens on Twitter.
My name is Joe Smith, and I'm a Saints fan. No, I got to be
Because you can't
Whatever.
do that in 6 characters.
Fleur-de-lis 28-3 forever.
23,
Never
4,
forget.
That's awesome.
Never
3,
forget.
3, R.
NBC News Radio.
Hi, I'm Joe Nichols. Idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, or IPF, is a rare lung disease with symptoms.
Joe
that
Nichols.
include-
Joe Nichols.
He took this to seriously.
Yeah.
Oh, Joe.
He's come a long way from tequila makes her clothes fall off.
Dude, after that, I need to.
Our All-Stars give you the inside knowledge for your home teams. Sports 1280, New Orleans.
No Wobble Wobble Wednesday would be complete without Will Guillory. I remember the one time he missed a Wobble Wobble Wednesday. It was the worst Wednesday show we ever had. It's your fault, Will, that one terrible show that we had. How are you, my friend?
I would be glad to take the blame. I'm fine with that.
Yes, good deal. So, Pelicans winning ways going into the All-Star break. Now we're, what, a week removed from their last win, and they'll hit the court Friday night. Just looking at this roster, where they are, and how they were playing going into the All-Star break, what's your confidence level that this team can kind of continue riding that momentum, even though they've basically rested I guess they'll have rested for a week and a half?
Right. I think at this point I'm slightly leaning towards them making the playoffs just because I think they've finally figured out what it takes to kind of play without DeMarcus Cousins. But I think it's going to be tough for them for sure just because there's so many teams fighting for those last few spots in the Western Conference. And they're going to need their big guys, Anthony Davis, Drew Holiday, to step up and play some of their best basketball of the season down the stretch to finish this thing off. And it's going to be a tough test, but I think they had to figure out how to play pretty much like a different team without DeMarcus Cousins. And with the past few wins, I think they've kind of shown that they're starting to show progress in that area.
Hey, Will, I'm intrigued, and I'm probably going to pursue this weekend, maybe Friday night, the game on Emeka Okafor. Have you been surprised that he's been – I know he's not dominating by any means, but he's been productive in that role that they brought him into play to kind of give some relief inside to Anthony Davis. What has been your impression of him so far?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say a lot of people are surprised. I would say probably even people within the Pelicans organization are surprised about what he's been able to contribute just because he's been out the league for so long. I mean, coming into the year, he hadn't played since 2013. And to see that he's already grabbed onto that starting spot, I think Alvin Gentry is going to kind of go matchup based, whether he's going to go with Mirotic or Okafor in the starting lineup. But I think the fact that this guy went from pretty much playing in the G League to starting on a potential playoff team is extremely impressive. And I think what's part of the biggest surprise is that he kind of still looks like the same guy we remember when he was back here, from 2009 to 2012. He still has that athleticism. He's still getting up there and blocking shots, getting those offensive rebounds, and just having that guy that provides energy down in the paint is so important for this team when Anthony Davis obviously has so much on his shoulders.
Will Guillory, NOLA.com, Times-Picayune, covers the Pelicans for us. Joining us right here on Dunc and Holder. This seems almost like a random question because we haven't heard about him in such a long time. Any thought of Solomon Hill getting back? I figured he'd be back by now, and it doesn't seem that way.
Yeah, I'm thinking they're probably going to try to get him back sometime early March. He's been doing a little bit. He's been slowly increasing his workload at practice over the past few weeks. I think the biggest thing for him is just kind of getting his lateral movement back. He's been shooting for a while now. I think he's pretty good as far as shooting, doing small things as far as his workload. But coming back from such a serious hamstring injury, and obviously being a defender, he wants to be able to move side to side to stay in front of these wing guys that are around the league. And I think the biggest thing for him is just making sure he can pretty much play the same way he did before the injury. So I think maybe early March they want to get him back, and obviously he's going to be a huge piece down the stretch because this team needs as many defenders they can get in there. So small in the backcourt, having Solomon as a guy that can defend those elite wings around the league is going to be really important.
Well, what did you think of the All-Star game? We had a segment the other day about it. Obviously, AD only played 17 minutes. Don't you think that was by design, probably through him and Alvin, just to cut back on his minutes? He's been putting in so much time.
Yeah, I would think so. And you saw that with a couple of other guys. Jimmy Butler didn't play at all. I mean,
I thought he was drunk. That's the story going around.
That got to him more than the rest of the season.
Right.
But I think with AD, I think it made sense for him to kind of hold back during the All-Star game, and considering how much is going to be on his shoulders the rest of the season. And I think the most important thing for him in a game like that is just to kind of go out. And I think, obviously, the moment with him coming out with the DeMarcus Cousins jersey, I think was really great. I think everybody enjoyed that. And I think beyond that, he didn't really care much about doing a whole lot out there, especially, those guys are playing really hard. And I don't know if AD really had that as a big priority for him to go in and really play hard in the All-Star game, knowing how much his team is going to need him over these final 20 whatever games.
Well, that kind of takes me into my question. One of the things that we've been kind of getting questions about, things that we've been talking about, especially with the All-Star break. Anthony Davis has been doing a lot of promotional tours, a lot of interviews, and obviously your story yesterday about how he believes that with the healthy DeMarcus Cousins that they can make the make the finals almost. It seems like there's this interesting dichotomy with Anthony Davis, specifically with him being a superstar, where he's talking about how he believes that the Pelicans at some point can really make a push in the playoffs. But at the same time, in these same interviews, he's also talking about how he's heard, from other players in the league about waiting too long to ask for a trade to be traded. It always seems like there's so much promise, but then there's always this kind of dread when it comes to Anthony about how long can we keep him here and really maximize on his talent and really make a run with the Pelicans before he decides eventually he's going to want to go and play somewhere else and really win. Can you talk a little bit about that and just kind of how the two sides of the pendulum kind of always swing?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's kind of what Anthony has to do at this point in his career. I think being with this organization as long as he has and only making it into one playoff series so far, we'll see if he can do it again this year. But I think Anthony has to start thinking big picture for his career and his legacy and kind of say, hey, of course I want to win in New Orleans. He feels loyalty to this organization. He likes the city. He enjoys the fan base. I think he wants to win here. I think he wants to win with DeMarcus Cousins. But obviously going forward, this is a guy that can go down as maybe one of the best forwards to ever play this game. And he has to consider that in order to reach that high of an expectation, he's going to have to do it in the playoffs. That's where we judge NBA players. That's where we judge, most professional athletes is what they could do in the postseason, whether you can get your team to a championship, whether you can advance in the playoffs. And he's going to do whatever he can do to make sure that he's in that position. If he wants to do it in New Orleans, but if he can't, obviously he has to make the best decision for his career. And I think it's been a big development for him as far as speaking, like you said, speaking more about this in public. I think he's kind of a guy that always likes to operate behind the scenes, kind of talking to Dell in the front office about what he wants to see from the team. But now I think it's important for him to kind of make it known that, hey, I'm expecting this from the organization, and I'm letting them know if it doesn't happen, then you know where my mindset is. And I think that's an important step for not only him, but for this franchise to let it be known that it's time to start winning, and they don't have time to kind of, say, hey, we can develop these draft picks maybe a few years from now. No, I think Anthony's ready to win, not now, but right now. And if they can't make that happen, I think he's ready to kind of do what it takes to move on and maybe do that elsewhere if he feels like it can't happen here.
Interesting. Will Guillory, NOLA.com, the Times Picayune covers the Pelicans for us. Join us right here on Dunc and Holder. Will, what's a realistic record in these final games that you feel like the Pelicans need to hit to make sure they make the playoffs?
I think if they could just stay right around that 500 mark, they'll have a pretty good shot. As of right now, they're sitting right there in that 8th spot. And the crazy thing about the West is just that there's so many teams. I'm looking at it right now. There's literally 3.5 games that separate San Antonio Spurs at number 3 and the LA Clippers at number 9. So I think it's going to come right down to the end. All of those teams are still in, and obviously the Utah Jazz going to the break winning 11 in a row, so they're in it as well. So I think if the Pelicans can maintain 500, if they can get to the end of the season right around 5 to 6 games over 500, I think that'll be enough to get them in. But obviously, there's going to be so many teams fighting for it, and maybe it'll take more. But like I said, I think if they can go into that final stretch of the season sitting right around 4, 5, 6 games over 500, I think that should probably be enough to get them that 8 or 7 seed.
I agree, and I think this thing is going to be crazy these next few weeks. I think all these games, I mean, there's no longer, hey, let's try and get through the season here. We're going to, this night might not our night. We're going to try to take maybe it off. It's not our night. All these teams in the mix are going to be fighting because it's so competitive now. The fact that Utah has kind of surged back into the mix along with the Clippers, man, I don't think you could say right now who is going to make it and who's going to fall out. I think it's very viable that a team that we didn't think was going to fall out could fall out of the picture, and somebody like Utah surge back into it. Don't you, Will? I mean, it's kind of crazy.
Absolutely. I think that's a real possibility that somebody that we kind of look at as a lock, like maybe the Minnesota Timberwolves or the Oklahoma City Thunder, one of these teams that we say, oh, yeah, of course they're going to get in. It's a real possibility that they won't get in. And I think having so many teams in it right now, I think an interesting part of it is down the stretch, so many of these teams play each other, and we're going to see these little mini playoff games pretty much on a nightly basis when Portland plays San Antonio, when New Orleans plays the Clippers, or when the Jazz play the Nuggets. All of these are going to be games that maybe decide whether these teams make it in or not. So I think, like you said, that when you go through the first few months of the season, so often guys look at every night and say, hey,
DJ NOLA East has a question for Will.
But they say, hey, it's a long season. We don't need to necessarily take every loss like it's the end of the world. But with only 25 games left in the season, if you lose twice to the Clippers, that might be the difference between you being the 9 and them being the 8. So I think every night is going to be something with all of these teams. And I think the Pelicans are going to have to fight what they dealt with all year, kind of this inconsistent effort. Oh, maybe they show up, maybe they won't. They don't really have that option now because you got to come out and fight every single night just to hold on to your spot. And you can drop from 6 to 10 on any given night.
Hey, Will, we got a question from a caller on the line, and then we'll have this last one and let you run. Let's go to the phone lines. DJ in NOLA East. DJ, loyal Dunc and Holder listener. DJ, what's up, buddy? What you got for Will? DJ, are you there? Well, there goes our hopes and dreams. That's over.
Oh, hey.
Oh, hey, DJ.
Yeah, I didn't know where you were.
I'm sitting right here. Where'd you go?
Excuse me. Look, I got a question for Will.
Go ahead.
You were talking about Okafor earlier. If the Lakers go ahead and drop Brook Lopez and some kind of miracle way he decides to sign with the Pels, would they have to drop anybody, or would they maybe get the exemption because of Agenda being out? And I'll hang up and listen.
All right, thanks, DJ. What you got, Will?
Yeah, I appreciate the call. I would say at this point, well, in order to bring in Brook Lopez, yeah, they would have to drop somebody just to free up enough cap space and free up the roster spot, especially after they signed Walter Lemon to a 10-day contract yesterday. Well, they announced the signing of it. But I think at this point, I would say the guys like Brook Lopez, I get a lot of these questions a lot of times, these buyout guys. I think so often everybody kind of looks around and says, hey, it would be perfect if Brook Lopez, you could put him in right here at the center spot. But I think so many of these guys that are getting bought out, like the Joe Johnsons of the world, the Brook Lopez's of the world, they're probably going to go to a team that's sitting probably higher in the standings. I think that's what you saw at the Greg Monroe situation where, and obviously money was involved with that one, but I think a guy like Greg Monroe would say, hey, I would love to go to New Orleans, but if the Boston Celtics are sitting there and they're the one seed in the East, I would probably be better off going there, and I have a better chance of going deeper into the playoffs. So I think, one, the Pelicans are a little bit of a disadvantage from that standpoint, and also they just don't have a whole lot of money to spend at this point. I think that was the reason why Boston won. They had their huge exception from the Gordon Hayward injury that they were able to spend and outbid the Pelicans for Greg Monroe. And at this point, the Pelicans don't have much more than really like around $1 million and $1.5 million maybe to give out to a free agent that'll keep them under the luxury tax. So I think at this point, the best bet for them, I would think, is probably to keep Emeka Okafor around because he'll be a cheap contract. He's a guy that's been around the team for a few weeks. He can kind of fit in exactly what they need. But obviously the Pelicans are going to go after the Brook Lopez's of the world, some of these buyout guys, but I think they're kind of behind the 8 ball just because of their money situation, and obviously they're at the bottom of the standings. So I wouldn't keep my hopes up for a lot of those guys, but I think obviously they're going to be aggressive looking for those guys on the buyout market.
Will Guillory, NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune covers the Pelicans. Follow him on Twitter at Will Guillory. Pelicans will hit the court on Friday night. They will host the Miami Heat. Hey, Will, great insight as always, my friend. And like I said, Wobble Wobble Wednesday, it can't exist without you. We need you. You have to be here.
Yes.
That's it.
That's what I like to hear, and I want to say that I got my guy, the barber, for you. If you want me to hit him up, get your appointment, I got you.
Why is everybody messing with my hair?
Because it's easy to.
Let's just let it grow back, bro. Naturally. Let's let it grow back.
NOLA.com in the back of your head.
Dave with the good plug. Hey, Will, appreciate it, man. That great stuff from Will Guillory. He'll be covering Heat Pelicans on Friday night as they get back from the All-Star break. All right, let's take one final break in hour number 1. Don't forget, top of the 11 o'clock hour, 11:05, we'll talk with ESPN's Mike Triplett, of course, covers the Saints, and we'll pick his brain on the offseason and what's going forward. So come on back, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. We're Dunc and Holder.
Asher bringing you the truth every day, noon to 2 on Sports 1280. Of course, you can also check me out on the television side, the award-winning
So I was having dinner last night with
Press Club Award back in 2015 for the best TV sports show.
Eric Asher, weekdays.
I was having
Sports 1280
dinner
New
with
Orleans.
You get a strong
Natalie and
opinion
Brett
each and every day.
And she was telling me that when she came to New Orleans.
All right, there's a short break, just 1 minute.
Visibility and save $8 instantly when you
And
replace
she
your
ended up
board
at this
wiper blade
event
with a pair
and
of
got
Bosch
seated.
Icon wiper blades at
She said she
O'Reilly
went to
Auto
like
Parts. Get
get her
premium blades
palm
that
read or
ensure
something,
clear
or tarot cards read or something.
Right.
And then she's got spiritual. And she went after that, and the woman told her that she was going to meet the man she was going to spend the rest of her life with on that trip with her. Then she ended up getting seated at an event next to Eric Asher. And Eric Asher was like,
It's me. It's definitely
For over 80 years, in the heart of Mid-City, where it's always been, is the New Orleans tradition. Mandina's
That
Restaurant.
story last night was
Home for some New Orleans staples.
Wow.
Then the next night you met Brad.
Old-style New Orleans food.
Cupid's arrow. It just missed.
Just
Some of the best
missed.
seafood in the city. Always New Orleans.
Asher needs this commercial.
Always the best.
Always the best.
Yeah, he just
Mandina's.
needs to take the ladies to Mandina's. It seems like the aphrodisiac.
Mandina's.
Now I know why I've been single too long. I haven't been
Yeah.
going there enough.
Yeah, that's it.
Americans living with
All right, coming back.
All right.
Get started at cctakesteps.org.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280 New Orleans.
Talk with Will Guillory last segment about the Pelicans. If you missed any of that and any of the show, sports1280.com, NOLA.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube page. Of course, Pelicans are going to be hitting the court on Friday night against Miami. And you look at their schedule, and it seems like it's a pretty solid mixture of teams fighting for the playoffs, and then you've got the likes of, say, Phoenix and Dallas and Sacramento. So it's not like every game is going to be going up against a team that's playoff caliber, but their backs are so far against the wall, they can't afford, as Jeff, you were talking with Will in last segment, they can't afford a slip up anywhere, period.
No, they can't afford any of those kind of nights that we've seen them have where they play down to the level of competition. They almost had one of those against Brooklyn not too long ago where they kind of lost their intensity. I don't think they will, though. I think this latest surge, I've been impressed with what Alvin Gentry and his staff have been able to do.
You're not supposed to say that out loud. You can't claim that you're impressed with Alvin Gentry. The haters are coming after you. It's
I know,
over for
but
you.
look, and along those lines, you have to give Dell Demps credit. I mean, Dell Demps lost a superstar, and he was able to pull off a trade to get Mirotic here. That a lot of people were competing for him.
And Mirotic isn't a rental. He'll be back next year.
Right, and they were able to pull in a quality player. I mean, if you look at the PER ratings, the player efficiency ratings in the league, Mirotic is one of the top 25 to 30 players in the whole league. And I'm big on that statistic. I think it's a really good statistic. It shows efficiency and production across lots of different stats. And, of course, AD's in the top 5, I think, in the league. But Mirotic is right there. His numbers are similar to DeMarcus Cousins as far as efficiency ratings. It's hard to find a player like that. And look, they had to mortgage the future, a first-round draft pick. We all know they're all in now. But that deal made sense for Chicago, and it made sense for the Pelicans.
And in the immediacy of this thing, they know jobs are on the line. Dell Demps knows it. Alvin Gentry knows it. And let's be honest, you get Mirotic for a year and a half, it's better than investing in a first-round pick. It's the one time I feel like I can validate the Pelicans just dumping a first-round pick, because it's more than just, oh, we got this guy for 30 games. You're at least going to be able to mix him in, and he's a good player.
And they had to do it. I mean, they've got to win. They've got to get the playoffs this year. I personally don't think that's the saving grace. You get in the playoffs, get swept in the first series. Is that enough? I mean,
it didn't save Monty. Remember when that happened?
And I don't think it should save anybody. I don't think that's the goal. I mean, the goal is to win a title, and I realize that's impossible right now with the way the Warriors are stacked in Houston. But you at least have to show signs that you can do it, and you can't settle for just making the playoffs. I don't believe that at all. So, yes, it's good if they make it, but you get eliminated in the first round. Where's that getting you? I guarantee you it's not enough for Anthony Davis, and that's why I think he's starting to strategically kind of position himself as a leader of the team to say, hey, the clock's ticking.
Because the next step after that, if the clock keeps ticking and nothing happens, it's when the back channels, a la Chris Paul, working every back channel humanly possible and info getting leaked out, and Chris Paul just putting up his hands and saying, I don't know where any of that trade talk's coming from.
Yeah.
That's when that pot stirs.
I mean, they don't really need – I think that in this now iteration of the NBA, I don't think you have to do that anymore. I think at this point in this level of free agency where we're talking about guys having lavish meetings with all these teams and which teams throw the best welcome and all this stuff at players. Like, you don't even have to worry about doing that anymore. And in the old NBA, yeah, you had to go through back channels and this guy and your agent, maybe talking to this guy and blah, blah, whatever.
No, I'm talking about, Clyde, you're talking about when they actually hit free agency.
Like free
I'm
agency.
talking about if you want to get traded. That's because Chris Paul had to get traded. It's not like his contract expired. He
I just don't know if Anthony Davis is that guy, though. I mean, he might be. I mean, he might turn into that.
He might be coming to that. You only get, if you're a competitor and you're one of the best in the league and you're just wasting away, I'm going to compare it. Like Drew Brees. If they would have wasted away last year, I would have written a column saying, Drew, get out of Dodge and go win again.
You can write one in the 2019-2020 season, because that's when he can, from Will's story, is when he can opt out.
You're talking Anthony Davis.
Anthony Davis, yes, obviously, yes. Yeah. So you could really be very quickly talking about that, because, I mean, we're 2 seasons away from that.
And at that time, I wasn't even blaming Chris Paul for wanting to get out, because he's seeing just stagnation. All right, I want to go somewhere else and try to win. This is back when I was doing radio days before I was working here, but the dishonesty out front, I just thought it was a sham, and it just made Chris Paul look bad. I didn't like the way that was handled, and yet I didn't blame him for wanting to get out.
It's the optics of it and how you go about it.
Right.
That was a debacle that the franchise, frankly, is still trying to recover from, because you lost one of the best players in NBA history, franchise cornerstone talent. You had ownership mess, a forced deal.
We could have had Lamar Odom.
It
would have been awesome. Louis Scola, who
I liked the other deal better,
and Pau Gasol. I liked that deal better.
I did too. Well, also I think Goran Dragic was in that deal.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he was.
Okay.
And I mean, he alone is better than anybody that the Pelicans got in the other deal.
I mean, they got
Eric
Gordon and Chris Kaman, and who else did they get? Maybe, was it Al Farouk Aminu?
Al Farouk Aminu.
Yep.
Who's amazingly still in the league.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Portland. Yep.
That is amazing.
Just shows you, if you're athletic, 6'7", 6'8", be versatile,
and you do your
defend,
job,
you can play a long time.
I'd be more amazed if Julian Wright was still in the league, because that guy ran around like a chicken with his head cut off, and I saw him shoot more shots, hit the side of the backboard, and shoot it into the stands. What kind of first-round pick was that? Holy cow.
Yeah, and that was a high pick. Yes. That was a top 10 pick, if I remember.
I'm stunned. Remember, he was like a top 5 people that projected him there, and he fell. I'm stunned why he fell, because other teams saw he was just some wacko.
Yeah, that was not good. That was not a good day in Pelicans history.
No, not so much.
And Jeff, it goes back to what we talked about, I think, a couple of weeks ago, where I think you're spot on. I think eventually the franchise is going to have to do something to really give back to the fan base in terms of really showing competency and free agency and really making a push like Minnesota has.
Well, not only to the fans,
like that,
not only to the fans, but to Anthony Davis and potentially Cousins, because those guys have to see they're serious. And I think the Pelicans ownership and management knows that.
Absolutely. Hour number 1 is up. Hour number 2 is on the way. We'll shift gears. Talk Saints, making his debut appearance on Dunc and Holder. ESPN's Mike Triplett, of course, longtime Saints writer for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, now with ESPN, of course, does a tremendous job. I'm not going to bag on him, even though he left us, and I cried myself to sleep when he left. Just kidding.
Eager to have him make his debut.
Absolutely.
D&H.
No doubt about it. And we might talk fantasy baseball. No, because no one cares about our teams.
No, we won't.
All right, hour number 2 is coming. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. Dunc and Holder.
Sounds like Mark Cuban's got some issues.
He's got a lot of issues.
With Boost, adding
He's got a lot of issues.
I read that story last night.
It's never been easier. So that means everyone gets a line. My son gets a line. My dad gets a line.
What?
My
the president guy? That guy sounds like a real winner.
And don't forget about Bill. All we needed was a switch.
You too can get line happy. This tax season, switch to Boost and make the most of your tax refund. Get 4 lines, each with unlimited gigs, for just $25 each per line. Plus, get up to 4 phones for free. All on Boost's super reliable and super fast nationwide network. Visit your nearest Boost mobile store for a great tax season deal. Boost makes it easy to switch. Switching makes it easy to save.
Offer ends 3/8/18. First line is $100 a month. Lines 2 to 4 free. Requires one line to port in. Includes unlimited talk, text, and data with video streams at up to 480p. Music at up to 500 kilobits per second. Gaming up to 2 megabits per second. Data deprioritization during congestion. Free phones require port in on plans $50 or higher while supplies last. Coverage and offers not available everywhere. Restrictions apply. See dealer for details.
WODT WNOE FM HD2 New Orleans. Listen on the free iHeartRadio app. Search Sports 1280. Fox Sports trending now.
All eyes on the Dallas Mavericks as an SI.com article revealed that former team president and CEO Tredima Usuri has been accused of inappropriate behavior toward female employees.
Hey, y'all there?
His entire 18 years with the team. Usuri left the team 3 years ago. Team did issue a statement saying they have suspended an employee whose job it was to investigate such allegations. And owner Mark Cuban says he had no previous knowledge about the accusations. Olympic news, American Lindsey Vonn has likely taken her last Olympic run. She did take bronze in the downhill. Meanwhile, the U.S. women's cross-country team won gold for its first ever medal in the event at the Olympics. And the U.S. men's hockey team lost to the Czech Republic 3-2 in a shootout. They will miss the medal round. So as it stands right now, USA with 15 overall medals, 6 gold, 3 silver, 6 bronze. I'm Deb Carson.
In a world of salt and ketchup, Taco Bell shakes up the game, only to expose a web of fries.
Fries seasoned in Mexican spices, dipped in warm nacho cheese sauce.
They don't want these coming out.
Who's that?
The burger people. They!
Starring nacho fries in a performance that has critics craving. It'll change the way you look at fries. $1 nacho fries. Serving at a Taco Bell near you. A participating location for a limited time. Prices may vary. Tax extra.
Guess what? With Boost, adding a line with unlimited gigs to my data plan has never been easier. So, that means everyone gets a line. My son gets a line. My dad gets a line. My yoga instructor gets a line. Oh, and don't forget about Bill. All we needed was a switch.
You too can get line happy. This tax season, switch to Boost and make the most of your tax refund. Get 4 lines, each with unlimited gigs for just $25 each per line. Plus, get up to 4 phones for free. All on Boost's super reliable and super fast nationwide network. Visit your nearest Boost mobile store for a great tax season deal. Boost makes it easy to switch. Switching makes it easy to save.
Offer ends 3/8/18. First line is $100 a month. Lines 2 to 4 free. Requires one line to port in. Includes unlimited talk, text, and data with video streams at up to 480p. Music at up to 500 kilobits per second. Gaming up to 2 megabits per second. Data deprioritization during congestion. Free phones require port in on plans $50 or higher while supplies last. Coverage and offers not available everywhere. Restrictions apply. See dealer for details.
Freddy's Pizza.
Hey, I just got my pizza and there's a piece taken out of it.
Yeah, that's our fee.
But I paid for the whole pizza.
And you got the whole pizza, minus our fee.
That doesn't make any sense.
Nah, it's just like being charged a sign-up fee on a personal loan.
I'm sorry, what?
You got feed. Goodbye.
Oh, wait a sec.
Marcus by Goldman Sachs offers no-fee personal loans for home renovations, major purchases, or managing credit card debt. Don't get feed. Visit Marcus.com.
By the time that we got up there, his room was filled with smoke.
The wind had blown and drifted the snow up against the side of my house, blocking the exhaust from my furnace.
I heard the smoke alarm going off in my friend's apartment.
Without the kid's smoke alarm, my son would not be here today.
And had it not been for that carbon monoxide detector, they would come to school and not have their teacher there.
I grabbed my fire extinguisher and put out the fire.
Kidda makes technology that saves lives.
Get these essential products at your local retailer today.
Matt LeBlanc and Jennifer Aniston were besties on the iconic NBC series Friends, and the man who played Joey says he thinks Rachel is doing just fine following her split with fellow actor Justin Theroux, adding while he hasn't spoken to Aniston, he's sure she's doing okay, saying she's a big girl. He's the first Friends cast member to comment on the much-publicized split. And much like a real-life version of Ross and Rachel, Selena Gomez and Justin Bieber are an on-again, off-again couple, and the mega pop star brought current flame Gomez with him to Jamaica as his guest. That was for Father Jeremy Bieber's wedding. Sources
Not for
Oh,
long.
There's actually less.
And a private jet from Dallas
So
to Montego
apparently,
Bay.
yeah, they were giving
Fans
they're
of
giving,
last
like,
year's hit thriller
they were
It,
gonna, like,
which
try to sell
readapted
it.
Stephen
Basically,
King's novel of the
AL.com's
same
like,
name to the
no, we
silver
want it.
screen,
They
will be interested to
gave
know
it all
that
to us.
Oscar nominee Jessica Chastain.
What's going on? I mean, like, how does this happen?
I
Variety
don't,
says
dude.
the
I don't
veteran
know.
actor may
I
play
don't
the
know.
adult
But I
version
mean,
as
that's
one
part of the
character.
course, all right?
Bill
Being like,
Skarsgård
okay, we
is
can
set to
probably sell a
reprise
bunch
his
of stuff
role
to
as the
make money.
menacing clown, Pennywise.
AL.com folks want it.
Comedian Colin Quinn is
1 minute.
hearted approach
We got
to a recent
Trip.
Oh, shoot.
The man suffered a heart attack last week. Well, Quinn took to Twitter saying the staff at his New York hospital realized they had a precious jewel of comedy on their hands. He had been busy touring. Fellow comedians ribbing the Saturday Night Live alum. Congrats
I
on
got
the
a
new heart
random
attack
email
material.
yesterday from
That's
somebody
entertainment.
represents
James
Fournette.
Flippin, NBC News
Wants me
Radio.
to like spend a day with
Open
Fournette.
calendar. What's my schedule looking like?
Go for it.
I did.
Why not?
I'll do it. It's kind of random.
Between Park and First Street. What? No, that doesn't work. I'm busy then. Decline.
Albert Breer's got his
Decline.
mock. Did you see
Floods
it?
don't
Yeah,
exactly
he has
work around your
Christian
schedule.
Kirk.
Disasters
Yeah.
don't plan ahead, but you
Interesting
can.
pick.
It starts with talking
Got
to your
him
loved
taking
ones about
Christian
making
Kirk
an
with
emergency
Arden
plan.
Key
So
still
don't
on
wait,
the board.
communicate. Visit getagame
Nope,
plan.
LSU can't take him.
Can't take him.
Office of Homeland Security and Emergency
It's over.
Preparedness
And
FEMA,
ahead of
and
Calvin
the Ad
Ridley.
Council.
Really? Wow.
All right, we got triplet.
Sweet.
Hey, we got Pelicans tickets to give away this hour, too.
Okay. We'll do
The
keyword.
26 versus the Suns.
Okay.
Here we go.
Dunc and Holder, hour number 2. You missed any of hour number 1? Of course, you can go back and listen to it after the show. Sports1280.com, NOLA.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube feed. And joining us right here on the show in a split second, we're going to have Mike Triplett. But first, we've got Pelicans tickets to give away. Dave, what game is it again? I've already blanked
It's
out.
26th versus the Suns.
26 versus the Suns. Jeff, this is your favorite time. We're going to give a keyword, and later on in hour number 2, you call back. When we ask for it, 504-260-1280, you will win the pair of tickets. What's the keyword?
How about pizza?
Pizza.
Pizza's the key word.
You sound hungry.
Well, no, my favorite pizza place in the country is in Phoenix. So that's what I think of when I think of Phoenix.
Oh, I'm just thinking that Mike Triplett's favorite pizza in America is Happy Joe's and the taco pizza, and I figured that's why you were bringing this up. Mike Triplett making your debut. How are you, bud?
Introducing me with pizza, you know the way to a man's heart.
Your heart. That's because I've hung around with you for way too
he's
long,
on
a
the
decade and a half, it seems like.
Happy Joe's board of directors or something.
Yeah, he's the founder. He is Happy Joe. He's like Papa John. He's actually Happy Joe. Well, Trip, appreciate you you jumping on the show. And all I know is I'm just glad that the Saints won't have me panic with long snapper since Zach Wood's under contract. Biggest signing of the offseason, right?
Well, last year I think they went through about 7 long snappers.
That was my panic.
That'll cut down on all of our workload significantly if they just stick with one for the entire year.
Hey, Trip, you had a story up a few days ago about the Drew Brees contract situation. I know we've all written a million things over the years about Drew Brees contracts, status, coming and going. Where do you see this thing falling out? I mean, it's obviously the number one priority early on, especially for Mickey Loomis and the Saints.
Well, I'm surprised that I feel like I seem to be in the minority when I keep writing about it. When people are predicting like 3-year deals or 2-year deals, I see no reason to think this isn't going to be another 1-year deal or, a shell deal that only has 1 year's worth of guaranteed money in it, because the Saints have made it very clear that's what they want to do at this stage of his career. 2 years ago, they would only give him a 1-year extension. Last year, they didn't even talk contract, and so now I don't know why suddenly he would get 3 years worth of guaranteed money now that he's even older at age 39. I think the Saints have been very clear that this is what they want to do. They want to take it 1 year at a time, so that if he does get hurt or retire, they don't have dead money from the contract plus the dead money that's already waiting that $18 million. And then Brees, on the flip side, has been willing to play ball. It's sort of his version of Tom Brady taking a hometown discount. Brees does not demand, 2, 3, 4 years worth of guaranteed money. He has been willing to play 1 year at a time without those guarantees. So I expect more of the same. Now, it could still be $25, $26, $27 million, especially since he's represented by Tom Condon, who probably has no interest in setting a standard where quarterbacks start taking discounts. But I think it'll only be about 1 year's worth of guaranteed money.
Mike Triplett, ESPN, covers the Saints. Join us right here on Dunc and Holder. Mike, outside of Drew Brees, we know he's the big free agent. It's not like there's a ton of free agency news. You got as far as bigger names, as far as with the Saints, you're probably going to point at Kenny Vaccaro. I'm under the assumption he's not going to be back with the Saints. You look at Alex Okafor, maybe Senio Calamete. What do you make of the landscape of what they have outside of Drew Brees?
Yeah, no, I think it's one of the best things about their offseason. I mean, not only obviously are they in good shape with the young roster and the team that just went 11-5 and decent salary cap shape, but yeah, this is not a very daunting offseason when it comes to free agency. And they could afford to re-sign everybody if they wanted to, but I think I agree with you. Their actions just make it seem like they're not going to invest heavily in Kenny Vaccaro. They would have probably done it before now. They could have extended him last year. They've drafted safeties in the second round each of the last 2 years as if to prepare themselves for him moving on. Perhaps if the price tag's a little lower than they expect, they would still bring him back. But he feels like a guy who, so many teams out there with so much money to spend, and Vaccaro obviously has great potential that he hasn't quite fully tapped into in New Orleans. I think he'll get a pretty good-sized deal maybe from another team. So I agree with you on that. Senio Calamete is another one. I think they'll put a price tag on Senio Calamete. He's very valuable to them, but he's still their sixth offensive lineman. He's a backup for them, so I don't think they'll pay him starter money. If another team is offering starter money and a starting job, I think they could lose him. And Okafor, I think, would be back for sure. It was such a great fit for him, a great fit for them. But, he tore his Achilles in November. I don't even know when the doctors will say that he's going to be 100%. But one way or another, I would probably expect him to be back too. But, yeah, there are not a lot of – they got to re-sign one of the fullbacks. But there are not a lot of, oh, my gosh, if they lose – this person, and this person, they're going to be scrambling.
Trip, if you had to wear your general manager hat and sit in there with Mickey Loomis and Jeff Ireland, and you had your choice of position needs or priority needs, what do you think is the biggest step this team needs to make to maybe get back to the Super Bowl, whether it's the draft or free agency, if you were asking for positional needs?
Well, I'm doing that right now. Kind of usually get through February by ranking the needs one at a time and then kind of going through the roster and analyzing it. And I'm as of today, I just wrote about Vaccaro today. I had safety at number 6, but I'll give you guys a free sneak preview. Defensive end is going to be number 1 for me, which I think it is every year. Like I said, if Alex Okafor was 100% healthy and under contract, maybe defensive end wouldn't be number 1 for me, but without knowing what you're going to get out of him, that position is huge. That position is huge for every NFL team. And even if he was around, I'd take a dynamic edge rusher who could rotate into the mix, and Okafor could kick inside. So I think that is an area. I think Cam Jordan's fantastic, but I think they could absolutely use more of an edge rush on the other side. And then tight end, pass-catching tight end, or I guess, maybe a possession receiver. But I was pretty stunned last year at how bad their third down numbers were. I never believed them. I kept thinking it was a fluke that would correct itself, and it never did. But as dynamic as their offense is, as efficient as their offense is, they really don't have a ton of pass-catching options that they consistently rely on behind Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram from the running back position. So I think pass-catching tight end will be a big priority for them, if not receiver, one or the other.
Mike Triplett of ESPN joining us right here on Dunc and Holder. Mike, I'm almost more intrigued by the restricted free agents. Each present a kind of a unique situation in and of itself. And if you were talking to me, say, 2 years ago, I'd say there's no doubt Delvin Breaux, they would give him a tender. If you were talking to me a year ago, I'd say there's no doubt that Willie Snead would receive a tender. And the other one is Brandon Coleman. What's kind of your perspective on those three situations that the Saints are going to be facing here very shortly?
No, that's a really good point, and I agree. With Snead, I just don't know. The restricted free agent tender, I don't know if you guys have gone over how it all works. If you want to just tender them, you get like whatever the teams would have to pay you their original draft round, but these are undrafted guys, so it's kind of a pointless exercise to tender them. Other teams can still sign them away. So if you want to tender them at the rate where another team would have to owe you a second-round draft pick, sort of like the Malcolm Butler situation last year, it's nearly $3 million. So same thing for Snead and Bro. Do they want to sign them to a one-year, $3 million deal? I tend to think yes on both, but I would not be surprised either way. I will be very fascinated to see. I think they'd probably rather sign each guy to a lesser deal, maybe like a 2-year, $5 million deal that doesn't hit the cap that hard, that they don't lose all that money if they end up cutting them. But it's really interesting because those are two guys who, if they play at the level they were playing at 2 years ago, would fill two huge needs. And I just talked about that third down. I mean, that was Willie Snead's specialty. There you go. You've got your possession receiver if you've got the Willie Snead of old. And Delvin Breaux, I think, would be the other starting cornerback ahead of Ken Crawley if he was healthy and playing at the level he was at 2 years ago. But there's just so many question marks with both of them now.
Yeah, I agree. I think the restricted free agents, Larry and I have kind of debated on that a little bit. And, in this day and age with the way the cap is rising every year, $1.5 million, $2 million really isn't that ominous of a price tag. It's just a matter of, do they have alternative plans, don't you think? I mean, if they've got somebody else in mind, they might want to go after. But Josh Katzenstein, we had him on the show last week, and he said something about these guys that I think makes a lot of sense, and that is you're not in the business of letting good players just go. And we know those guys have the ability to be good players, so I think it's going to be interesting to see if the Saints still feel like they are the old players that we saw before, or if they just, for whatever reason, feel like, oh, you know what, we need to move on. But at those price tags, I don't think they're hugely ominous to or egregious to pay for any of those guys if you think you're getting the pre-2017 versions of each.
Oh, yeah. If you think you're getting those versions of the guys, then $3 million is not too much. But, I mean, we saw in their action. Last year there was a talk that they were going to try to trade Delvin Breaux right before the season started and all the confusion over his injury status, but you could tell he had fallen out of favor a little bit with the coaching staff, for that to have happened. And then Willie Snead was around last year, and they just didn't use him. You're not paying $3 million for a guy you're going to use as little as you used Willie Snead last year. So for him, you're going to have to be convinced that the entire year was a one-off, and you can totally reboot. But, I mean, he was healthy for the second half of the season, and he wasn't catching 1-2 balls a game. He wasn't playing that much. He was blocking more than he was receiving. You're not paying $3 million for a guy who's just going to do that. So you've got to be convinced that you're getting a different version of Willie Snead than you got last year.
Mike Triplett, ESPN, covers the Saints, and, of course, former longtime Saints beat writer and columnist over at NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. Hey, Trip, appreciate the time. We'll make this more regular so you stop your begging and complaining. Yes, and then I'll repay you handsomely with a Happy Joe's Pizza next Tuesday, as Wimpy would say.
I'll hold you to that, man.
I got to get them shipped in. I mean, unless you open up a franchise, you should. Here, do it.
And get your fantasy baseball chops on.
I'm a first-time caller, but long-time listener, so I'm glad I was able to join you. Keep up the good work.
I like how you're pushing the boundaries, by the way, on the fantasy baseball draft. I like our league rules.
Oh, here we go.
Well, we could do a whole segment on that. I found it in the rules, but when I find a rule,
I was not shocked to see the reaction. By the way, it's a little inside baseball here.
Hashtag no one cares about our fantasy teams except us. Thanks, Trip. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Trip.
See you guys.
All right. Breaking news when we come back here on the show. So we'll take a break right here, and of course, great catching up with Mike Triplett. Does a fantastic job. That's why he's at ESPN. So come on back. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Dunc and Holder.
trying to get it up.
Hey, it's Chris Gordy from The Chris Gordy Show reminding you our show has moved here in the new year. Catch us weekdays from 2 to 4 right here on Sports 1280 New Orleans. Same great show, same great guests, just a move to the afternoons.
The Chris Gordy Show on Sports 1280 New Orleans.
This week, Butterfly Garden and Insectarium for just $34. Watch as the beautiful butterflies swoop and soar all around you. Go to foxsportsam1280.com, keyword deals for your half-off certificate today.
iHeartRadio celebrates the contributions of African-American artists to every style of music, from funk to jazz, blues to hip-hop, and so much more. Hear music from the artists that inspired generations of musicians and continue to influence pop culture today. Aretha, Jay-Z, Michael, Marvin, Tupac, Diana Ross, and so many more. Listen to their special playlists or an iHeartRadio original station like Urban Pop Classics and Motown Sounds, providing the soundtrack to Black History Month all February.
Guess what? With Boost, adding a line with unlimited gigs to my data plan has never been easier. So, that means everyone gets a line. My son gets a line. My dad gets a line. My yoga instructor gets a line. Oh, and don't forget about Bill. All we needed was a switch.
You too can get line happy. This tax season, switch to Boost and make the most of your tax refund. Get 4 lines, each with unlimited gigs for just $25 each per line. Plus, get up to 4 phones for free, all on Boost's super reliable and super fast nationwide network. Visit your nearest Boost mobile store for a great tax season deal. Boost makes it easy to switch. Switching makes it easy to save.
Offer ends 3/8/18. First line is $100 a month. Lines 2 to 4 free. Requires 1 line to port in. Includes unlimited talk, text, and data with video streams at up to 480p. Music at up to 500 kilobits per second. Gaming up to 2 megabits per second. Data deprioritization during congestion. Free phones require port in on plans $50 or higher while supplies last. Coverage and offers not available everywhere. Restrictions apply. See dealer for details.
American skiing legend Lindsey Vonn is ending her Olympic career with a medal of the bronze variety after the women's downhill event in her final Olympic Games in Pyeongchang. At 33, she's now the oldest woman to claim an Olympic alpine medal. The American men's hockey team headed home from Pyeongchang empty-handed, losing their quarterfinal matchup with the Czech Republic 3-2 in an overtime shootout. U.S. women's hockey team plays in the gold medal game tonight against powerhouse Canada. Face off 11:10 Eastern Time. Canada has won 24 consecutive Olympic Games, 4 straight gold medals. The USA dropped a preliminary round game 2-1 to Canada. The NCAA is denying Louisville's appeal of penalties leveled against the men's basketball program following a sex for pay scandal that's forcing the Cardinals to vacate wins from 2.
All right, 10 seconds.
Okay. Including the first time a national championship has been vacated. The penalties were originally handed down last year that ultimately led to the firing of head coach Rick Pitino and AD Tom Jurich. That's sports. Jay Corwin, NBC News Radio.
You can pat your legs, wave your hands some more. Hit them out with time for the radio.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280 New Orleans.
Breaking news from Airline Drive, the Saints and the Pelicans. Greg Bensel, head PR guy for the Saints and the Pelicans, sending out a message and a statement saying that Saints and Pelicans owner Tom Benson was recently admitted to Ochsner Medical Center. He is currently being treated for flu-like symptoms and is resting comfortably. Mr. Benson, who turned 90 in July, has been admitted into the intensive care unit and is receiving the standard, excellent, and world-class care that all patients who enter Ochsner Medical Center receive. Mrs. Benson requests and sincerely appreciates your thoughts and prayers. So certainly something that, boy, you're going to have to keep an eye on because you can't mess around with the flu.
No.
Yeah.
Especially if you're 90.
Absolutely. So, yeah, so we'll be certainly you hope well wishes for the Bensons. And, yeah, so we will be monitoring this as we move forward. And if we have any other details, we will certainly bring them to you at Dunc and Holder. So, as far as we just caught up with Mike Triplett and talking about some on-the-field things, and he was bringing up some priorities about, say, edge pass rusher, tight end. As we move forward and we see, say, players getting released potentially and just where the Saints go once they hit free agency, I've been pretty staunch as people keep saying tight end, and you look at mock drafts, and they got tight ends everywhere. I'm still, and it hasn't changed for, I don't know, at least 4 years. Edge rusher. You can't count on Alex Okafor. Achilles tears are not easy to come back from.
No.
And when you've had a hole there, look, Alex Okafor was nice patchwork. If he would have been healthy, this would have been a no-brainer. You still draft someone, I would think, but this would have been a no-brainer that you try to keep him. But now you're kind of in the air. What do you do? And the name I keep hearing that's kind of floating around as far as the draft, because I don't think there's really anyone, if you look at free agency, no one out there really enamors me as far as an edge guy, unless by some miracle for the rest of the league that the Cowboys let DeMarcus Lawrence loose and they don't franchise tag him. There's no way that's happening. No chance, none, zero, nada. But you look at the rest of the crop as far as edge rushers, it's not some overwhelming class. Ziggy Ansah still might be tagged, but I'm just looking at Andy Benoit, his top free agents as far as edge rushers. The first one outside of those two is Julius Peppers. That just shows you where they are. Alex Okafor is next.
Wow.
So he's like the number 4 guy.
Yeah, so he's technically among the upper echelon group of guys that you actually want to have on your squad at that point.
And he's coming from an Achilles in November, and there's certainly no guarantee he'll be ready.
Well, I mean, at that point, are you know, we talk about this a lot, and I think once we get, past the combine, or once we get into the combine, and once we get a little bit further past that, I think one of the questions that I would imagine that Saints fans have is you want to, I guess, have some kind of idea of how teams and organizations go about looking to fix the weak spots or deficiencies that they have, but there's so many other things that play about, guys that may or may not get released. Obviously, if you're talking about, guys who could potentially, you never know what could happen, but obviously the Cowboys would be crazy, especially with what they need coming back to drop Richardson. But I mean, it's one of those things where I think for Saints fans, they're just more on edge. And it's like you said, until Drew Brees signs his contract, that's going to be the number one priority. But then after that, it's going to be going about trying to figure out how to really add key pieces at great rates, or maybe drafting key pieces that you can develop. But there's no guarantee with all of this. It's just, and the margin of error is so slim between being a team that's going to win the Super Bowl or a team that's going to finish sub 500 and is going to get a high draft pick.
Yeah, and when you're sitting at 27, the options, you're not going to get the top pass rusher. You're not going to get who's the top pass rusher? Is it Bradley Chubb?
Yeah.
Is that the guy from North Carolina State?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to be anywhere near there, and you're going to be kind of at the mercy of some other people, because the Saints, they don't have as many assets to trade up as they did last year if they really loved a guy, and you don't have a second-round pick. Now, I know the closer we get to the draft, people are going to be complaining for that second-round pick, but zip it. Alvin Kamara, enough said. Move on to the next conversation.
And you traded Peterson, and you got a pick.
Right.
I mean, come on, man.
You have picks, but you're not going to have enough ammo if you want to move to the top 10, unless you're dealing a player like a very, very good. If you're dealing Michael Thomas, I mean, that's not going to, none of this is going to happen.
No.
So you're kind of at the mercy of best player available. Obviously, that's helped the Saints in this past draft, but that's because they were able to get a Marshawn Lattimore. You were able to kind of wait it out and see what happens. But yeah, this class just is underwhelming as far as the edge position. And I remember last year thinking, wow, they've got big-time names at the edge positions, but those guys never hit free agency. Just think of last year. Chandler Jones, tagged. Melvin Ingram, tagged. JPP, tagged.
Surprisingly.
Exactly. And those guys are nowhere near. I'll just rattle off some of the other names that are kind of in this mix. Trent Murphy from Washington. Barkevius Mingo, Adrian Claiborne, Connor Barwin, and Coney Ely. Some of these some of these people, they're on their third or fourth teams, and they're still young players. So it shows you that if you want to go sign a cheap guy, you can do that. You want to go risk signing Okafor, you could do that too. But if Okafor would have been healthy, he would have been hard to sign.
Yeah, because there have been buku teams looking for a guy like that. And I think that's also the question too that, I think you guys look at too is, production and value over someone that may be a flashier name. And at this point, do the Saints just need to go out and find somebody that can at least fill the role and help take some of that pressure off of Cam Jordan from the other side, take some of that pressure off of the interior defensive linemen that have to, hopefully get some of that pressure inside so that you can kind of either come around or basically just run back into like at least create some pressure. At some point, you hope to at least have a quality type player there that can just do the job, give you some kind of production, just so that if Cam Jordan's seeing double teams, if and they're trying to scheme for really trying to get him off the ball and get him away from the quarterback and getting in the backfield specifically, at this point, whatever you can get that is within your budget of whatever you think you can get for this type of player, and then hoping that Alex Okafor somehow is able to rehab and get back on the field at some point next year. Because just like with Boogie that we talk about, that's an injury that's not like, it's not a knee, it's not a shoulder, like that's the literal string of muscle that's holding your ankle and back of your leg together. That's just not something you can overcome easily.
No, you got one leg. You can't walk off an ACL, even though people have ACLs and they can function. You can't. No human can deal with not having an Achilles, and it's something that it happens so late in the season. You don't know what's going to happen, and it's just kind of bad luck. What can you do? Because Alex Okafor was on the way to a good season, and if he would have played better, if he was able to play, their pass rush would have probably been better throughout the season, and so they were kind of scrambling. So I'm curious to see where they go there. I'm curious to see who's around that first-round pick, what they do, because if maybe they don't get back in the round 2, they have to wait till round 3. So it could be one of those needs that kind of lingers that we've kind of seen for the past few years. So I'll be curious to see about that. So let's take a break right here on the show. If you want to get involved, 504-260-1280 is the number. And we will be back. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. Dunc and Older.
Back again. DJ Manny. Fresh. Yeah. Fresh.
Your forecast on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
This report is brought to you by the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation.
From the Fox 8 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Bruce Katz. Here we go again, near or at record highs, getting up to 84 degrees. May see a couple of scattered showers. Today's rain at 30%. Now tonight, overnight lows in the upper 60s to near 70. Thursday and Friday, still way too warm. Could see more record highs. Thursday and Friday in the low to mid 80s. Overnight low in the upper 60s with spotty showers at 20 to 30%. We do turn breezy and a little bit cooler late in the weekend.
It's like, it's like now what?
With your Weather Authority forecast.
Only 2 segments to go.
I have Crohn's disease. The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America's Take Steps Walk program is dedicated to raising funds and awareness to combat Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. To find a walk site near you, visit www.cctakesteps.org.
Chili's wants to know, when was the last time you had a great lunch?
When was the last time you had a great lunch?
Oh, and we're singing too.
We go way back, baby, back with our singing.
Yeah, we do, but lunch is our thing too.
We've got 10 lunches for just $7.
Burgers, quesadillas, just $7 for lunch.
I'm getting hungry.
Just $7 for 10 awesome lunches.
It's even better when you say it that way.
It's pretty much the same thing, but I flipped it. Chili's is back, baby, back, baby, back.
With lunch for $7.
Oh, take Chili's lunch to go, baby, go, baby, go.
Available at participating restaurants only. Prices may vary in Hawaii, not available in Alaska and Canada.
This tax season, AutoZone has everything your car needs, like free battery testing. Now you can stop the second guessing and finally start your car.
We could talk about all this craziness going on in Dallas.
Cable or time for a new one, AutoZone.
I'm not really totally
right on the spot,
in tune with it.
free of charge. And right now, get
let's just say boys
AutoZone
behaving badly.
By mail when you buy
again, because apparently we cannot get over it.
Locations nationwide, and let's get you what you need. Must buy 2. Restrictions and details in store.
Get in the zone, AutoZone. Google is streamlining their payment options as Google Wallet and Android
forces to form Google Pay. Kind of like Apple Pay, users with a Google account can pay for items in stores with their smartphones as well as pay online. Users will also be able to send money to each other through the app. Instagram lobbing another volley at Snapchat in the messaging wars. When users send a photo or video from the Instagram direct camera, you can decide whether recipients can only view it once, replay it temporarily, or see a permanent thumbnail of it in the log. Previously, all messages would eventually disappear. Snapchat always lets you temporarily replay a photo or video with no way for senders to deactivate the option.
All right, 20 seconds.
Produced the world's first street-legal electric car capable of going from 0 to 60 miles an hour in under 2 seconds. The Aspark Owl does it in 1.92 seconds. That beats Tesla's Model S, and for good measure, the Aspark Owl is faster than any Formula One racing car. Tech Report, Larry Olson, NBC News Radio.
Your teams, your sports 1280 New Orleans.
I didn't expect Paul Mainieri to have too much to say about what happened with Andy Cannizaro. Of course, reverting back to yesterday's big bombshell story within college baseball and locally, since Andy Cannizaro was an assistant at LSU and former Tulane baseball great. Of course, Andy Cannizaro resigning, relieved of his duties, whatever you want to call it. He's not Tulane baseball coach anymore. And Paul, of course, was asked about it yesterday and didn't say too much, basically just saying that the whole situation stinks. I mean, that's basically the paraphrasing of what I saw.
And he wasn't very shy to talk about how he was disappointed because Cannizaro, flipped a LSU commit very, very late to Mississippi State. And obviously in baseball circles, that kind of stuff doesn't fly, specifically with, a team that you just left to flip. And I mean, there's always going to be that kind of recruiting that goes on. You don't think it happens too often, but like usually there's a gentleman's agreement if you're being recruited by hard. And this kid was recruited by LSU for a long time, to be flipped late at the last second with whatever Cannizaro was able to do. Apparently, Paul Mainieri was not happy with that, and I guess, for all intents and purposes, it caused some friction. So it made those 2 series that they played last year even a little bit more heated than most. It wasn't just, Andy Cannizaro playing LSU. No, it was Paul Mainieri saying, basically going Godfather and being like, I'm coming for you.
Clyde, I've received, some mocking pictures of Andy Cannizaro, and of course, the one that was stood out most to me was someone photoshopped Andy Cannizaro's face onto Bobby Petrino's head with the neck brace.
With the neck brace and this.
We got to go there.
Hey, it's not our fault. You just walked back in, Jeff.
What do you want me to do?
We got to go there.
Go there. I didn't do it, but that's just where we went.
That's where we went.
It's just where we went with it. But no, Jeff, we've been just talking about how Paul Mainieri was asked about it yesterday. Didn't have to say much. I know people around the Tulane community are still stunned because Andy Cannizaro was held in such esteem there. And it's something that Paul didn't want to say too much yesterday. You figured that. But he to paraphrase again, basically just the whole situation stinks for everyone involved.
That's the best way I would say anybody would describe it. It's sad, and there's nothing good coming from this. There's families involved, and people's careers on the line, and Mississippi State's got a mess. It's just there's nothing good about it. I agree with Paul Mainieri, and that's exactly how I would expect him to react on someone that he was so close to, and someone that I think he had a lot of high expectations for, and was off to a great start in his coaching career. So it'll be interesting to see how that all develops going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. But want to mention, I did it briefly earlier, but LSU taking on UNO tonight in baseball. We know LSU is going to want to come out and redeem themselves after a poor weekend, and UNO is coming out probably with some confidence. They're going to be playing up in Baton Rouge tonight, and the midweek drama last year with LSU baseball, they kept losing midweek games. Certainly we know it didn't affect them going forward once they hit the postseason. But, Clyde, you were talking about this earlier, maybe yesterday or 2 days ago, or whenever we had Paul Maneri on. I don't know. We talked a lot of college baseball.
Oh yeah, the day I wasn't here.
well, we didn't talk about it that day.
Okay.
But how you feel like there should be an increased emphasis with LSU in their midweek games, and that even though he could pull the Johnny Holstaff, whatever the name he calls it, that there's going to be maybe more of an emphasis that you feel like either they will or they should take on those games.
They should. And the thing about, these midweek games that usually a lot of coaches, obviously if you talk to a lot of coaches, these midweek games are important seemingly because they're either regional rivalries, long-standing rivalries within kind of geographical area, or just really good teams that are coming in, and your local products that you can see mom and dad come and whatnot. But the thing about LSU baseball, at least the last few years, have been midweek games have always been almost really like landmines for LSU baseball. I mean, I can think back to, I think a couple years ago, going on the road, losing a big lead at Lamar, losing to Lamar on the road. That's just a weird game, really going late innings with like Northwestern State. Not saying that this is bad. It's not bad. It's just that when you approach the midweek games as time for some of your fringe players to really step up and show their competency in the game, sometimes, unfortunately, that leaves you in a very precarious position because you don't want to use any of your weekend guys, specifically any of your weekend rotation guys, because sometimes that's also been a problem for LSU, is that they'll have to go to the bullpen and use guys they would normally use on the weekend in the midweeks, and then you're talking about
I'm just throwing a position player. Forget that.
Which also isn't crazy because he's done that before too.
Right.
But I think this year is going to be the year, specifically when we talk about what happened last year with dropping 2 or 3 games at Notre Dame, having another ranked Texas team come in this weekend, and depending on what their record is, and depending on how the rest of the season is going to go, these midweek games are going to be a chance for them to, pad their RPI record and or stats against some pretty good teams from around the region, and also keep them well enough above 500 to keep them in the mix later on in the year for NCAA seeding and tournament talk.
Well, we know that you could find diamonds in the rough in the midweek. Isn't that where they basically found Aaron Nola?
Yeah, exactly.
Midweek, and then they shifted him. But they're going to be looking pitching-wise at any of these guys because they had so much trouble. What was it, 10 1/3? Their starters went all last weekend?
Yeah, that's incredible, and it's incredibly bad because that is a low number. That means that you're getting not only, and it's like Andrew Lopez talked about, like you're walking guys, you're giving them free bases. The chant in baseball is, or in softball is, we love free bases. We love free bases because that is basically an unforced error. Yeah, we love free bases.
I want you to do that.
We love free bases.
I don't think I've ever heard that chant ever.
Of course not.
The only chant I've ever heard is batter, 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 swing.
Let's just say
that's all I've ever heard.
Let's just say that the chants in baseball and softball, which I've heard enough of in my lifetime to never hear again, have become a little bit more sophisticated since then. But basically the idea is to you're getting in the head of the pitcher, and then you're getting free passes.
Oh, we want a pitcher, not a belly itcher. Is that still popular?
No, that one's too old for the kids.
Well,
these
then
days.
Fiddlesticks.
So unfortunately, that one's also
toast.
not good. But clearly the biggest thing is that if you're walking guys, you're giving guys free passes, they're not even working for it, then that means that you're giving teams opportunities to have runners on first and second, sack, bunt, getting guys in scoring position. Those are opportunities that baseball teams are getting to be able to score runs, take early leads, and try to, because you want to get to those middle innings where you're really seeing the pitcher now 2 and 3 times that you're able to really start finding your groove and really start putting the ball in play. But yes, it's going to be an interesting game tonight. Obviously, LSU's coming in within a team overall batting average of 217. After that series, Notre Dame hit 318 against them. So, obviously, it's going to be interesting to see how UNO attacks this LSU pitching squad after the weekend they had.
Well, looks like UNO lost. They played yesterday and lost. Am I making that up?
Unless there's something else that I haven't seen. Which
he was
is
too busy
surprising.
practicing his chants.
We want a pitcher, not a belly itcher.
Yeah, they
lost to Jackson State
of the SWAC.
That's
they
probably
gave up,
not a good loss.
Well, that's not going to help them because now granted they're quality SWAC teams, but the schedules that they play unfortunately don't help, and especially when you lose to them. But it looks like Jackson State scored 3 runs over the course of the second and third inning, scored a 4th in the 5th inning, and then pretty much UNO was playing catcher from there. They would get 2 runs in the bottom of the 5th. So not the type of game you want to play on a Tuesday to go into playing at Alex Box Stadium on a Wednesday.
Absolutely. All right, let's take one more break right here on the show. If you want to get involved, we've got an open segment coming up.
Keyword.
504-260-1280. And you want Pelicans tickets? Call in for the keyword now. You remember it? Jeff, don't say it.
I won't. I want to say it, but
I know you want to say it.
I was dying to say it
because you're hungry. I'll just.
Ooh,
it could totally be like gummy bears. That might be it.
Yeah.
Cracker Jacks. Jeff's looking at me like I got 3 eyeballs, so I'm just going to go to break.
Oysters.
We want the keyword 504-260-1280. You call in with the keyword. First caller, you get Pelicans Suns tickets. So come on back. Sports 1280 NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. You're talking older.
Sorry about that. I got obviously got caught up.
Well, yeah.
That thing.
Strong coffee and
Just
took
trying to
away
get off.
his Bailey's Irish cream. Josh Innes, morning 6 to 10.
You get the point on Sports 1280.
New Orleans.
What is big? Big is a ballin', shot-calling, gravity-defying offense and a lockdown defense. Big is you and your posse getting loud and proud. Big is an insatiable appetite
Hey, Julie, what's
for
up?
winning. Come see the Pels against the Miami Heat Friday,
you doing?
February
I didn't see her over there in the
23rd.
darkness.
Friday night right
The darkness.
Serious?
She's
in the dark.
She's in there the whole time?
Yeah, dude, you
New
walked
Orleans
past her.
Pelicans.
God,
Do
that's
it big.
crazy. You could have taken me out. I wouldn't
Nobody
know.
knows your car the
And
way
you
you
would have
do.
deserved it.
Like a
The
sniper.
way it handles and tracks with mutters, not all terrains. How it only sounds right with a custom exhaust, and wouldn't ride the same without air suspension. Or how you had it painted pearl candy red, not just red. Because yeah, there's a difference. We know your car isn't just a car. It's a 3,000-pound extension of you.
Todd
When your
texts
passion
Aaron
meets
Nola
our
midweek
inventory,
at
you can
Tulane,
do
the
anything.
beginning of an era.
Thousands of parts make
The
your
beginning
car
of an
your
era.
car.
The beginning
And
of a
they're all
legacy.
Right here at eBay Motors.
Austin Seafood and Steakhouse. From fresh Louisiana seafood to mouth-watering fresh-cut prime steaks and delectable Italian dishes. Austin's offers an extensive wine list and a fully stocked bar located at 5101 West Esplanade. Casual upscale dining in the heart of Metairie. Serving dinner Monday through Saturday from 5 to 10 p.m. Have your next event with Austin's. Banquets, luncheons, or rehearsal dinners. For reservations, please call 888-5533. Austin's, a true dining experience. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House, now open in the core 7 days a week at 512 Bienville.
Thursday, March 8th from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m., the United Way of Southeast Louisiana is holding its 18th annual Got Gumbo Cook-Off at the Royal Sonesta Hotel on Bourbon Street. Come hungry for gumbo and desserts from some of the best restaurants in town. Tickets are only $30 in advance or $35 at the door.
I mean,
All
this is
proceeds
not
will
as
benefit the
soothing
United Way of
as like
Southeast
crawfish cream
Louisiana's
sauce
Gumbo of
poured all over
Services.
my
That's
head.
Thursday, March
Dave,
8th
you need
at
to
the
be
Royal
more
Sonesta
seductive
Hotel
in
on
your
Bourbon for the
Don't
United
listen to
gumbo
them, Dave. This is
spots.
terrible. This is terrible advice.
18th annual Got Gumbo Cook-Off.
You can't change the whole world, but you can be part of the change in the world for a child living in poverty by becoming a Compassion International child sponsor. You can choose a child to sponsor now at compassion.com/radio. That's compassion.com.
All right, coming back.
Dunc and Older now. Eric Asher next at noon on Sports 1280 New Orleans.
If you missed the breaking news earlier, Saints and Pelicans owner Tom Benson was recently admitted to Ochsner Medical Center. He is currently being treated for flu-like symptoms and is resting comfortably. That according to Greg Bensel, who is the Vice President of Communications over on Airline Drive for Saints, Pelicans, and everything else basically to do with Tom Benson. So can't mess with the flu. Cannot mess with the flu.
Very
I'm
serious.
still trying to get over it, and it's been a month, I feel like.
Yeah, it's a serious situation. I mean, Tom Benson's 90, turned 90 in July, and having to be admitted in the intensive care unit in particular, that's serious. And obviously everyone in town is going to be monitoring that situation.
Absolutely, yeah. You have to monitor it. It's certainly something we'll be watching. Any details we get, we will bring it to you here on Sports 1280 and at NOLA.com. Now, Jeff, we kind of pivoted away from Saints chat for a minute, but as far as what the Saints are going to be doing, Combine's in a week. And people always think of the combine as something that, it's just prospects on the field. We're going to watch them run around in shirts and shorts. And that's the part you see on NFL Network. And then you'll see the players sit up in a podium and answer questions from the media. But just from our side of the coin, and as far as from the NFL side of the coin, the team side of the coin, it's so much more than that. Like, it is absolutely more than that. This is the time when we were going over free agency and who might land where. I mean, this is the time where people get together, hammer out deals, or start talking about trades, which is what we saw last year with Brandon Cooks and the Malcolm Butler stuff. That's where it all popped up.
Yeah, it all went down there, right?
In Indy, yes.
And that's typical now. The league has actually carved out some protocols there that allow for these meetings, and it's non-tampering. But I think as agents and teams are wont to do in a competitive environment, they still break those rules. They still get out early. I'm sure there's already conversations, people getting a lay of the land of who's going to be available on the market, what price ranges they're looking at, what the competition's like. This is when it gets crazy in the NFL. It's almost a second season, and our old friend Alex Marvez, longtime NFL reporter, he used to call this time of year the Wild Wild West because you don't know where the bullets are coming from. And it's kind of true. All of a sudden there's just a story breaks, and I think we're going to see a lot of that this year. Even though the market, free agent market's not the most exciting I've ever seen. It's pretty tepid.
I would agree. And you had to step out, but we were talking about the edge rusher position, and no one wows me. No one.
I agree.
It's funny. I was referencing to Andy Benoit, his free agency breakdown at MMQB. The next best guy outside of two people who might be franchise tagged, and those were DeMarcus Lawrence and Ziggy Ansah. The next, number 3 on the list was Julius Peppers. Number 4 on the list was Alex Okafor.
Yes.
Shows you how light that side of the football is going to be. And if you're the Saints, you don't want to go invest a ton of money in some of these guys. Maybe you get someone like there's an Adrian Claiborne. I mean, his sacks are going to be padded because he had, 6 in a game?
Yes.
Who was it
crazy?
Who he sacked 6 times? Something like that?
The Colts, maybe, or the Bengals, or the Jets, or something like that. I can't remember. I remember when it happened. It was a backup player that was thrust into just a horrific situation and got abused.
I almost feel like it was Bryce Petty. Maybe it was.
It wasn't Bryce Petty. It definitely wasn't Bryce Petty. It was somebody like the Colts or the Bengals or the Jets that had a tackle go down, and this player was playing almost like the Saints did when they brought Senio Clemente in and had to stick him into a makeshift situation, and he just got abused in that one game. Maybe Jacksonville or something like that.
I'm looking it up now because it's going to bug me because I don't remember.
The reason I'm guessing Colts is because Jacoby Brissett was sacked 1 million times this year. If you look at his stats, I think he's sacked far and away more than any other quarterback in the NFL, and so that would add up if he was sacked that many times.
He had 6 sacks against Dallas.
Okay, yeah, that was when Tyron Smith went down.
When he went down, yes.
And they moved who was it they moved over there?
Oh, I'm blanking, but that poor guy was a revolving door.
Yes, it was not good. It goes to show you what the Saints were able to do this year with so many injuries along the offensive line and having good depth there, and the investment that they've made in the offensive line over the last few years in trading Jimmy Graham for Max Unger, going out in free agency, getting Larry Warford, drafting players high. It all paid off because they needed it. They would have been in trouble if they didn't have Ryan Ramczyk. Big-time trouble because of the injuries.
They would have been toast.
They would have been.
Bryce Harris would have been your starter all year.
Right, and Bryce Harris is a savvy veteran, but he's limited skill-wise, certainly compared to, say, Ryan Ramczyk.
Limited skill-wise is being about as nice as humanly possible. I remember one training camp where Zach Strief got on my case after practice because I was too hard on Bryce Harris just being torched every practice.
Yeah, Zach,
he got on my case.
He's not afraid to speak his mind. I remember one time he got into it with me because I had written that somebody had ragdolled him in one-on-one pass drills. I can't remember who it was, but I think I had the wrong player. And so he came up to me.
Well, that's why.
He came up to me and said, if you're going to say I got ragdolled, at least have the right person that ragdolled me.
Oh, I thought you were basically accusing him of being ragdolled, and he wasn't.
No, I had the wrong player. It was, I think, a lesser player than like a Cam Jordan that ragdolled him, so it made him look bad.
So
he let me know.
So it could have been anyone.
I can't remember who it was. It was years ago. He made a beeline to me right as soon as practice was over to let me know, and we got through it.
Well, yes.
Nothing wrong with that. Zach speaking his mind. You got to be, if you're going to dish it out, you got to be able to take it.
I don't know if
I was inaccurate.
I don't know if Jari Evans and me ever got through it when I infamously wrote a film study about him getting torched by Gerald McCoy. Didn't appreciate it. I said, "Where's the Pulitzer?" I was like, "Here's the Pulitzer," and then he became the worst person in sports, according to Keith Olbermann, by the end of the week. So that kind of escalated out of control a little bit.
Yeah, you don't say when it comes to you.
My wife made me do it.
Yeah, your wife.
Seriously.
Your wife made you do it?
This is actually true.
Wow.
She's the one who needled me into doing that, and I did it. And
you felt pretty good after it was over, didn't you?
Well, it's hilarious. You better check the resume. Look,
check the resume.
Check the resume.
That's what Keith Olbermann said.
Which is something I
You
read
better
last
check
night.
and make sure that guy doesn't have a Pulitzer. That you could just break out at any point in time, and there you go.
Good point.
Boom.
We've all
Jeff
had these.
could do that too.
We've all had these run-ins over the years, and it's part of the business. And I certainly, I actually welcome the dialogue as opposed to just a cold shoulder and somebody just trying to swear you off. I prefer somebody to approach you and say, "Look, I didn't like what you wrote," or "I didn't agree with you." Unfortunately, in the world we're in with social media, that's become a vehicle a lot of times. I would prefer a straight conversation in the locker room or off on the side of the practice field.
Well, yeah, my situation, that's where it came from, social media.
Right.
Yes. But no, I've had players come up to me, and obviously I've had coaches come up to me.
Oh yeah, I've had Jim Haslett. I thought Jim Haslett was gonna punch me. I mean, I really did. Pretty sure he was gonna, and he's a big guy.
Yeah.
It would not have gone well for me.
He's an angry man.
It would not have gone well for me, but he apologized quickly
Why,
the next day.
shifty? You could have avoided him.
Yeah, I'm pretty agile.
You're spry.
He's like Jim Haslett's 6'5". He was a former outside linebacker. He's a big dude.
Because remember, as you pointed out this week, there's a difference between being fast and being mobile and agile.
Correct. Well, I'm fast. I'm just not big. So
you're fast. I
not
thought
the size.
you had like no ACL.
I know, but I'm still fast.
How can you run
straight
fast?
ahead. You can run straight ahead fast.
So you can't make a cut.
Roger Kingdom won the gold medal. I forget what Olympics. I can't cut it all. No, but Roger Kingdom won the gold medal in the hurdles, and I forget what Olympics without ACLs, because he's just going straight down the. People don't understand. I think the ACL. Like, you can play without an ACL. When I blew mine out once, I didn't even know I got hurt. I had no idea. I just made a cut, and my knee gave out, but there was no pain. There was no swelling. I played the rest of a flag football game, and it blown my ACL. It happens all the time.
So you're basically saying Carson Wentz is a wimp.
Well, no. Then the other time I tore my ACL in a basketball game, it felt like somebody had shot me in the leg. That one hurt, but
10 seconds.
It's all different.
1 minute.
You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you get hurt, and you know it. Sometimes, like, I think the Achilles tear, I think that's pretty painful.
Yeah, well, we were talking about that with Alex Okafor. Basically, you don't know how long it's going to take for him to recover, because that thing can't be 80%. It's got to be 100%.
Right. Yeah. And you got to be confident once you come back of, like, not thinking about
Boogie.
it.
Same thing. We'll be dealing with. So, all right.
30 seconds.
Great show. If you missed it, sports1280.com, NOLA.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube
Congrats
page.
to Randy.
And congrats to Randy. He'll be heading to Pelicans Suns, so good job. He got pizza.
Pizza.
That's the. Thanks, Jeff.
Pizzeria Bianco in Phoenix. If you ever get a chance, Pizzeria Bianco.
I've eaten there. So I want to thank Mike Triplett. Want to thank Will Guillory, Eric Asher coming up next. So we'll see you guys on Thursday. Duncan Holder. Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Double D.
All right, guys.